mastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The last 2 days, we've started exploring Saddarśana, seeing what is this elusive I that I must understand. Where the irony is there any moment where I'm away from this I? No, that is impossible. Yet it's the least understood thing that I know. I can master anything, but this concept of what am I really is very difficult to master. Now before we dive in today, let's pause for 1 second here. You've all been diligently coming for 2 days. I've tried to keep it smart for 2 days also. But at the end of the day, why does this knowledge matter? Think about what makes you and me happy in life, okay? A good set of friends and family around us. Avenues for having my basic needs met. That's met for me as well. Then there is some vocation I do that gives me joy, is beneficial to the world in some way, some benefit in the work that I do. And it would be nice to have those that understand me around me at all times. Not having to be dependent on anyone for anything. Whether it's financial dependence, whether it's for safety, for any of these things, let me be independently happy without having to depend on someone else for it. And let my progeny be happy as well. My family, my children, let them be successful and happy. If I have all of that, what else do I need? Do I need religion at that point, honestly? Many of us are content at that point, saying that all of these needs are met. What is this moksha and this whole conversation on realization? Why does that matter if all these other needs are met by other avenues? That clearly comes up. But the truth is, if I think bigger, more holistically than just this life, this body, this individual, when that inquiry starts of why am I where I am? Why is it that certain people get certain opportunities, certain people don't? Why is it that people that commit sins left and right seem to be successful and in stable positions, while those who honestly work as hard as they cannot seem to catch a break no matter what they do? These questions naturally arise. These are the questions that mean I'm ready for some deeper inquiry. That my basic needs are met, there is something else that I'm scratching the surface of. I need to know something else about this world, which makes me want to go out and understand what is deeper. Because I can go through life thinking these things make me happy, that's enough, but what do I invariably find with that kind of a living? First is association with temporariness. That nothing lasts. I think I now have the perfect job, I'm in the perfect place, income level is perfect, output level is perfect as well. That changes right away. Have one more kid, see how much it changes, right? For a young family. Drastically changes. So nothing is permanent that way. I have these kids, I raise them well, one day they leave, and they call every day. After some time, they call once a week. After that, once a month. Before long, you don't know updates about their life even. That happens to many parents. They feel quite disturbed by that. Nothing is permanent. Association with temporariness. Association with pain is also there. At some point, those loved ones who have been with me since the beginning, they expire before I do. That's something to deal with. Association with pain of as I age, health issues may come up. And the worst kind of aging is when physically there is deterioration, but mentally the sharpness is still there. Meaning you see yourself deteriorate at every step, you can cognize it all, and there's nothing to be done about it. That invariably happens with age. Dependency, caused by enjoying this world. This very world that I love so much, I want to enjoy it, so I earn to enjoy it. Now, for that enjoyment to continue, I need to earn more. And to earn at all, the reason is to enjoy it. And the dependence I have on me, there's a scene from a movie, a really funny scene, where this kid is texting, and his dad's wanting him to pay attention to the family. So he says to him, stop texting. He says, Dad, you're texting, though. And he says, I'm texting for work. I'm texting to pay for your texting is what I'm doing. So you can't compare what we're both doing here. It's very, very different. The dependency is there in the world. That I have all these things around me to keep them sustained. Yoga, acquiring can be there. Kshema, having to protect these things, that's even harder to do. And before we know it, how does life turn out then? There's an amazing story about this. Where, when Bhagavan first made the beings, he had a human, he had a donkey, he had a dog, and he had an owl. Okay? He gave each of them 30 years to live. Each of them. Human, donkey, dog, owl. Donkey said, 30 years is too long to live. I'm fine with 10 years. 10 years is plenty. He said to the human, do you want my extra 20 years? And of course, the human is greedy without thinking at all. That's what makes us human. He said, yes, I want those. So now human gets 50 years. The dog and the owl both said the same thing as the donkey. 30 years is way too much for us. We're fine with a good 10 years. We'll give our 20 years to the human as well. So human has 50, 20 more to 70, now 20 more to 90 then. That's how we got our lifespan. Scientifically, you won't find it anywhere. It's because it's a deep knowledge, okay? That's why. So, human is 90 then. What does this signify? The first 30 years of a human's life, he lives like a human. Exploring the world, understanding what this nature of how things work are, finding talents, finding different vocations, understand the joys of peacefulness. All of this, I think bachelorhood, right? 30 years, that's how it is. From the age of 30 to 50 is the life of that donkey. Like a mule carrying on its back, like that, you drive the kids around that endless peloton of Monday morning traffic you have to sit in. But Peoria, and there's no Monday morning traffic, I'm sure, right? But other places, like the hells we come from, like Dallas and Chicago, there's a lot of Monday morning traffic then. You have to deal with all of that. And working for those ungrateful kids at the same time, all of that's there, life of a donkey, 30 to 50. 50 to 70, life of a dog. A dog's biggest preoccupation is the bone that it has, digging it up in the yard, hiding it there. And then the insecurity of what if someone else comes and finds it, so digging it back up, moving it somewhere else. Like that, all my assets that I have for future generations, 50 to 70, to keep that legacy intact, here I am moving it from place to place, trying to hoard as much as I can for that next generation. 50 to 70. Then if I'm lucky, to make it to 70 to 90, life of an owl. An owl simply sits on that tree with its eyes wide open, looking at the world go by. By that point, because the life of a dog also, in this country, we value dogs a lot, right? When they come, we pet them and everything. Other places like stray street dogs, like we just wave them away. 50 to 70, we get waved away like that also. The young people that are there do not want our opinions. They don't care about our point of view. Experience that we have to give them, they don't want. To the extent, what did I see recently? One man is in his 60s. He just had a grandson. So he came to visit his daughter and his son-in-law with that grandson. What is his son-in-law doing? He's giving the kid a bath while watching a YouTube video. The video is teaching him how to bathe the child. And that's what he's looking at. And his father-in-law wants to say, I raised your wife, I can help you with this, but Damad, right? We can't say anything to the son-in-law at all. So he has to watch like this and just watch it happen. That's the situation we find ourselves in. Where that age brings experience, a wealth of knowledge that can be used by that next generation, but instead we watch YouTube videos to learn how to bathe a child. That's where we find ourselves. Now, lucky to make it from 70 to 90, like that owl who sits there just watching the world, the sense organs also start failing, and we just sit there and watch the world go by. Now, I'm not saying this to be pessimistic at all. Realistic maybe, but not pessimistic. The main question I have is, does this have to be my life though? That in this kind of a life, the question of inquiry, deeper truths, what is it I have to focus on? These thoughts do not arise for a person going through these levels of life. They're so worried about acquiring, procuring, and saving, so worried about somehow making it in this world with material objects, keeping that family intact, happy, and wealthy. When all my attention goes to those things, there's no need for religion at that point. I'm occupied completely. But then one other mindset is, let me live this life to an extent. Once my kids are out of the house, once I retire, then I'll go for a spiritual life. What's the guarantee we even make it that far? That we have our wits about us, that we have physical health at that time. What is the guarantee? And even then, we look at the spiritual lifestyle. Something as basic as we'll see today is that concept of Ishta Devata. Having that personal form of Bhagavan that I connect with the most. If that relation with that Ishta Devata and that ardent upasana, that worship, is what purifies my mind so that I can approach that seat of knowledge, how long must I maintain that relationship? Is it something that in 5 or 10 years bears its fruits? If anything, it's got to be an entire life. That's why in our Balabihar programs, if you look at our syllabi that we have at most of our centers, kindergarten through 2nd and 3rd grade focus solely on these accounts from Puranas and Itihasas. Where, let's not dare call it mythology, this is our Hindu history. It actually did happen. These stories being recounted to them, they understand these forms are there. Let me connect with Bhagavan. That purification process starts right there. From 4th grade to 6th grade, symbolism of what it means. We see Bhagavati Devi with the veena in her hand, the swan by her, 4 arms. I have 2 arms, she has 4 arms. Why? These questions come up. So understanding the religion through the symbolism is what they need at the age of 9 or 10. From there, we go to understand the saints of Bharata, understanding Dharma, that there are people who live this kind of a life. It is possible. Then we get to more complicated matters in middle school. Mahabharata is taught at that time usually, where we see that not everything that glitters is gold. Not every king is a pious, good king, like the previous stories tell us. There's some pretty wretched kings out there as well. So we learn about the human nature and the follies of arrogance and attachment. Then 8th grade, 9th grade, usually Hindu culture, or the kids are introduced to the books of Puja Gurudev, where a broader understanding that there is a world beyond just what my needs and wants and having those fulfilled are. There is a world beyond all of this. And finally, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, their first foray into a serious grantha. Be that self-unfoldment, be that Bhagavad Gita, where they understand the truths of life, not just live this life, but previously and beyond, are contained in our Hindu Shastra. Let me own up this Hindu identity as that vehicle that carries me through life. So in our Balabihar programs, that's why we have the syllabus set the way it is, to go through all of these layers. But even then, despite this Hindu identity being strong, this topic we find in Saddarśana of inquiry, that is an acquired taste. Not for everyone. Not everyone's cup of tea, but if I want that liberation, I must go through it. So today we start with the shloka of looking at the world around me, others exist. I talk about this world, and yesterday we went at length saying how this world is completely illusory, yet it still exists. What is that existence of others what role does that play in my own development? Let's repeat. Tad yushmadorasmadi sampratishtha. Tad yushmadorasmadi sampratishtha. Tasmin vinashte smadi mula bodhat. Tasmin vinashte smadi mula bodhat. Tad yushmadasman mativarjitaika. Tad yushmadasman mativarjitaika. Sthitir jvalanti sahajat manasyat. Sthitir jvalanti sahajat manasyat. Tat or yushmat. Tat and yushmat, meaning that and thou. So there are very many words like this. Thou meaning you, that second person. Tat is that third person, this, that. Aham is that first person, I. Now, when these words are used in the incorrect way, things don't sound right. There's one man who was made the head of a railway station. Proud of what he was. So in English, he wanted to express what he is. So he asked his people, who is the station master? I is the station master, is what he said. Someone came to him and said, no, you can't say that. It's I am the station master. He said, okay. Who am the station master? I am the station master. So still, grammatically, things have to check out. Grammar matters so much in our inquiry to Vedanta here. Or the reason why words like you and this and that, the reason why they even exist is only in reference to what I is. Very simply put, you means you to me because I is I for me. For me, this laptop is this, closest device to me. For you, this laptop is that, it's that far away. So remoteness, closeness, these words matter when we're referring to different things based on their relativeness. They also matter in different contexts. For example, one beautiful thing we find in Sri Ramcharitmanas, Tulsidas Ji's diction here is, there's two words, iha and uha, in Awadhi. Iha means right here, uha means right there. So if someone is describing, Tulsidas Ji is describing in Ramcharitmanas about the stories, he uses iha, uha quite liberally to talk about this place, that place, or here and there, iha, uha. But what is the standpoint of that iha and uha? It's not even I where Tulsidas Ji is. Wherever Bhagavan Shri Ramchandra Ji is, that becomes iha automatically. Even that before is the Kishkinda, even that Milanka, whatever it is that's iha, anywhere else is uha. Meaning the place where Bhagavan is that most remote place. The depth of what he does there is beautiful. For us it's confusing. We say, where is he talking about? Here, there, what does that mean? But his meaning is, wherever that Bhagavan is in my heart, that's where he always is. So here is always where that Bhagavan is for me. Even in his exploits in Leela, wherever here is where Bhagavan is, everything else is there, somewhere remote. But for our purposes here, yes, you're right, that when it comes to this standpoint of calling things as this or that or you or them, it's all based relative on I. If this I did not exist, you, this, that, them would not exist. That's pretty much my world, isn't it? Because we often believe this world is there, I am one minuscule part of the world. In reality, everything else in this world, meaning what I interact with, is only predicated on the existence of I. If I see this I as falsified, there is no creation out there. So I is the only existent entity, no matter what. Now, this may seem complicated at first. This is the most simplified level of logic that we come to. Where our preoccupation at this point is not what we call paristhitivada, which means shaping the world how I like it, that's what makes me happy. In Sanskritam and many regional languages, paristhiti means situation or circumstance. So based on what circumstance is outside, that dictates how happy I am. So what has to happen for my perfect day then? We didn't go through a perfect day yet, did we? Not in this place? Okay, perfect day for me is green lights all the way to work. I know Peoria has no traffic, but beyond that, no red lights also. That's even an added bonus. That's the life. Kids don't give you a tough time in the morning when they're getting ready. No one misses the bus. No one yells at you in the morning like these things. Everything is fine. Your husband or wife doesn't ask you too many questions in the morning either. What is the plan for this? What are we doing for this? What is the weekend thing? They just close their mouths and they go about their day. That's the perfect day. At work, the boss does not ask you questions either. And you come back and the house is still intact. The kids have not torn it apart. And you enjoy some good food that day. Cheat day that day. You get to enjoy some good food and you go to sleep. Perfect. How many of these things are in my control? From the green light, to the kids, to the spouse, to the work, nothing is in my control. Yet my happiness is predicated completely on these things. Is there ever a happy day in my life then? There may be one. I keep bragging about this. No one believes me, so I have to say it more forcefully everywhere I go. I did have one day, back when I was working, 25-minute car ride on a single yellow or red light. Which I used to run those anyway, but that's beside the point. Green lights the entire way. It did happen. Only happened that one time. I've tried to recreate that day since then. Never happened. So, Paristhiti-vada, not going to work. So, one level higher than that is Karma-vada. So, you're saying circumstances will never line up a certain way. Through my self-effort, let me make things happen then. I will determine my own destiny this way. The famous statement by one of our presidents was what? Our destiny is not written for us, but by us. We're the ones that determine what happens. Very true. But even then, haven't there been times with full good intention, in a noble way, I've taken the right action, the outcome has only been non-conducive for me, has hurt me? Doesn't that happen so often? Karmavada does not work either. Meaning, if there is any expectation that the world will give me some happiness, either through just lining up or through my own self-effort, I am sorely mistaken. That happiness I'm looking for will not be in the world. And people say, that's got to be a false statement. You're just saying that because you're a Brahmachari dressed like the way you are. For those people that drive Mercedes Benzes and the vagina houses, they're happy in that way. Yes, but desire never leaves that person, though. The sign of happiness, is it that I've accumulated so much? Or is it that my desires are no more? I'm happy with everything I have. If that's the litmus test of lack of desires, who is really happy in this world? Meaning this quest to understand this I, seeing that world is illusory, is necessary then. Now we come to the topic of time in the 17th shloka. Bhutam bhavishyat cha bhavat svakale Bhutam bhavishyat cha bhavat svakale Tadvartamanasya vihaya tattvam Tadvartamanasya vihaya tattvam Hasyana kim syat gatabha vicharcha Hasyana kim syat gatabha vicharcha Vinaika sankhyam ganane valoke Vinaika sankhyam ganane valoke Hasyana kim syat. What is laughable that he's talking about here? This idea that the present I'm not going to worry about, I'm only going to think about the past, the future, and what I can do there. Time is so important to me. Any anxiety, from the smallest anxiety of, will my favorite team win? Actually, that's not a small anxiety. Today was fine. Not too many people were worried, but there are moments where we're worried about things like that. To the highest anxiety of, where will my next meal come? Can we afford to stay in this house next month? Things like this. it only comes from regrets of the past and anxieties for the future. That is the two-pronged sword that really hurts me. Past and future. Meanwhile, what's happening in the present, I cannot enjoy, I cannot give my full attention to, because this past and future occupies so much space in my mind. Time is very important. We talk to people who say that, yes, we've made money, we've made friends and connections, all of these things. The one thing that even the richest person cannot buy more of is time. It's not like when we set our clocks forward an hour or back an hour, like we did a couple weeks ago. It's not that some people that are the richest among us, they get to not set their time back and they, gain 2 extra hours or something. It does not work that way. Time is a construct that affects all of us. However, in this inquiry into I, what do we find? I tend to think that I am a product of time. And naturally so. I have the date of my birth, the time of my birth, all of this is well documented. Therefore, I am a consequence and a product of time. But what this inquiry tells us here is that substratum, which Shastra is telling me that I am, it is beyond all 3 periods of time. This existence principle that we've explored, there was no time in the past where it did not exist. There is no time in the future where it will not exist. Therefore, it is beyond time. Time, if anything, is a product of existence. Time is not me. But then what's a Hindu-centric objection that could come up at this point? That Hariji, are you saying that Jyotish Shastra is not real? We talk about astrology, but our Hindu astrology is quite advanced. Not like any other type. If you open the newspapers here, you find Capricorn, Sagittarius, all these different signs, and there's some horoscope for that day, right? I guarantee you, you can read any one of those, and they will apply to your life that day at some point. You'll meet someone new today. No, I'm in Peoria. How can I not? I've never been here, but first I'll meet someone new every day. Things like that. I actually read through it today to see what it said. One was, you will face an obstacle today. Yeah, when I walk out of here, it's going to be 40 degrees. It's different right here. That's my obstacle. Or, you will face indecision today. Yes. How much time do I spend on each shloka today? Plenty of indecision is there. Any one of these horoscopes, is what I mean to say, can fit my personality. Our Hindu astrology is beyond that, though. Nakshatra, based on the Tithi, everything that we find there is a very intricate, scholarly approach to time. And there are a lot of truths. Planetary alignments, everything. It's not just a simple horoscope. It's much beyond that. When I talk to our Yuva Kendra members, they're looking for their life partners, their Janimans, Jivan Sathis. When they're looking for these people, oftentimes they dismiss certain things like, oh, my parents want to look at the Jataka of the person. I don't believe in this nonsense. You may not believe in it, but don't discount it. It does have some relevance. It's not that our rishis were completely, lacking intelligence. They knew what they were doing. It matters a whole bunch. So given that time matters so much for us as Hindus, Rahu Kalam, some people don't do anything new in those times. Signing a business contract or starting a job or something, let's look for a good day, then embark on it. You don't pick these shani-oriented times to do anything. When our culture then is so steeped in this concept of time, here it's telling us time is not even consequential in my journey. How are we to reconcile this? If I consider myself a jiva, with the 5 layers of the sheets that we saw, with these 3 states of waking, dream, deem, sleep, if I consider myself to be this entity, then time is a concept that matters. Can't be discounted, definitely does. But if I come to that stage of inquiry, seeing that time is only meant for a finite purpose, to carefully and comfortably go through this life as a jiva, then I understand time is essentially a product of me, not the other way around. Which means some niyamas then have to be observed when I transact as a sadhaka. With very few exceptions. For example, if there's a muhurta for a vivaha, or a muhurta that has to be done for a ground pratishtha or something, that must be observed. Because at that point, I'm looking at it as a jiva, as a sadhaka, therefore these rules do matter. But when it comes to this Brahma Vichara, for instance, that's a whole different ballgame. Where, when it comes to certain vratas, japas that are done, there is a heavy set of anushtana that must be practiced. What time do I do it at? How do I do it? How do I cleanse myself before doing it? All of these things matter a great deal. But this Brahma Vichara has no real niyama behind it like that. This process of inquiry does not require any kind of purification beforehand, any kind of incantation, karanyasa, lagunyasa. That doesn't matter for this Brahma Vichara. It's likened to hunger in the Shastras. Like if you haven't eaten for 6 days or so. Some people have done that, not eaten for 6 days. Someone finally gives you food. You take that first bite, right? And you say, is that what you do? After 6 days of not eating, whatever it is, you are going to voraciously eat that thing. Things like flavor and stuff don't matter to you at that time. Like that, for someone who's so hungry for this knowledge, understanding of what my true identity is, nothing will stop me from doing that. The time is not right. I don't feel I'm in the right place for this. That does not happen. I'm focused on my career right now, not other things. These excuses don't come up. They take advantage of it here and now. So time is basically a construct to help me as a jiva traverse this world. When it comes to this Brahmachintanam, focusing on this substratum and getting to that Saddarśana, that experience of that existence principle, that recognition of it, time has no factor there, it is beyond time. Which is that perfect segue to the 18th shloka here, that brings in that concept of time and space also here. Kvabhati dikkala katha vinasman, kvabhati dikkala katha vinasman, dikkala lile havapurvayam chet, dikkala lile havapurvayam chet, na kvapi bhamo na kadapi bhamaha, na kvapi bhamo na kadapi bhamaha, vayam tu sarvatra sada cha bhamaha, vayam tu sarvatra sada cha bhamaha. Space is also a major factor that we consider when it comes to living this life. Like we did an activity with the high schoolers just now. We talked about 8 areas of life that every person must account for in their lifetime. Personal development, business and career, finances and wealth, friends and family, arts, recreation and entertainment. Then we also had personal development, love life was one of them. Physical space was also one of them. That matters on par with everything else. The space that I find myself in has so much to do with my inner growth. So often, growing up in this country, as children growing in this country, me included, we're quite pampered. Maybe sharing a bathroom with one other person is the limit that we have. I talk to families where they're growing up where the entire family of 8 shared one bathroom. And we said, how did you get to work and school on time if all 8 of you shared one bathroom? We made it work. Here, I need complete silence at my house to study and to work and things. There are some houses, complete silence is not afforded. It's especially in an Indian household, complete silence is not something that's going to come. You adjust. You somehow do it. Space, then, is a rare commodity. There's one story of a man that went to a Mahatmaji. He said, my house is too small. I live in one giant room meaning a small room that I live in, just one room house that I have. I can't function here, it's way too small. I can't afford a bigger place, but I don't like living here. What's your advice? Mahatmaji said, here, take these 2 cows, have them live inside your house for 2 weeks. I said, what? I don't think you heard me, I don't have enough space. I said, no, I heard you. Take these 2 cows, put them on one side of the room, you live in the other side, whatever you have to do. So those 2 weeks he lived there, and then he sent the cows back to Mahatmaji. Then he came back a week later, he said, oh my God, my house is so big! There's so much room here! I can do somersaults, I can do anything here. Losing even that space for those 2 weeks showed him gratitude. And he said, oh my God, this space is so huge right here. So the thing about space is, one, we take it for granted. The other, we feel it matters so much to us. Now that's space at the Vyavaharic transactional plane. Space has that much importance to us. Here in the Vedantic sense, space is relative completely. I say things like east, west, northeast, southeast. I have all these coordinates that I have. Space is completely relative. Your kids may not believe me. There was a time when there was no GPS with us. It was a hard time. We got in our cars and on road trips. We had these maps with tiny print that you had to magnify on and see where to go. And there were times also where if you had a gathering at your house, people would call you and say, how do I get to your house? When's the last time you ever called someone after getting their address to say, how do I get to your place? You can't even remember the last time. We had this thing called MapQuest. We had to print off those sheets and use those. Remember those days? Now we're spoiled completely. Where kids these days don't even know left and right. Without an arrow showing them which way, they don't know left and right. Or they don't know how to read a clock like this either. Sad. Kali Yuga, what can you do? So space is completely relative. To the point where you give markers to people to come to your house. That you pass the Dairy Queen. If you've come to Subway, you've gone too far, you go backwards a bit. But past the Dairy Queen, and after that, my house is the third one on that street, the one with the red door. Relative directions like this. Just as this idea of you, this, that, them, is predicated, resting on that I's existence, space is also based on that I. Space is completely based on that I. Even in some religions, that space is based on I. In Islam, where they pray facing Makkah. Wherever they are in the world, Makkah is in a certain direction, they face that way and they pray. In our Sanatana Dharma, we see that as important as space is for relative terms, once I understand this identity as that I, that pure consciousness, space has no bearing on what I am. It's completely beyond space. Because when we look at our 5 elements we have, Venkatesh has gone through Tattva Bodha with you all, right? So what are the 5 elements we have? Earth, air, fire, water, space. Space is the most subtle of all of them. Where the subtlety in space comes from, how many other attributes can be associated with that space? Meaning my organs of perception, how many of them can be associated with these elements? Earth being the grossest, meaning the most tangible of all the senses, of all the elements. All 5 of my senses can be involved in that earth. I can feel, sense of touch is there, sense of sight definitely there. Taste is even there. Bhagavan Krishna shows us. Taste of dirt is even there, of that earth. You can hear the earth rustle. You step on leaves, you hear it beneath your feet. Smell, gandha is also there for that. Go a few more elements higher to fire. I can perceive fire through my eyes. Sight is there. I can hear a crackling fire as well. That sense of hearing is there. Can I taste fire? In South Indian picture, you can taste fire. But fire is an element, though. Can't taste that fire. Smelling of a fire? Agarbatti is not smelling fire. Whatever that agarbatti flavor is, that's what you're smelling. Same with the cigarette. It's not the fire. It's that flavor of that cigar or cigarette. That's what you're smelling. So it's not as pervasive. Or it's more pervasive because I can't really cognize it. Coming to air, then, even more so as an element. Can I see the wind? If there's a marker, I can see the wind. Meaning if I see a tree that's blowing in the wind this way, that way, then I can infer and say, okay, there's a wind blowing, there's air. But seeing air out the window where there's nothing there, can't do it. I can't taste the air. Taste or smell comes from the earth or water element that's in that air only. That wafts around, that's what I taste or smell. It's not the air that has any of that. The gandha, from perfume that comes, not even the water element there, it's from that earth element. Rose petals are crushed, or substances are crushed to make that perfume. What is the only sense that can access space? Shrodha, ear. That's the only one. Space provides me the medium for that sound wave to travel. Air doesn't do that, space does. So it's a very specific purpose then. Now, this space which is so subtle, even that we make into a limited entity. How do we do that? By how we spatially recognize things. We say this is the lecture hall space. That is the kitchen space. There is no separate space like that. If these walls were not there, there would be no distinction. We make those distinctions then. Like that, when I am that pure consciousness, because I'm encapsulated in this one body right here, I put that limitation on myself. This is the Hari Chaitanya space. And beyond that, I have my personal space as well, which you can't invade, my personal space. When it comes to personal space, it wasn't until I went to India that I found out what real personal space is. Okay, after our course, we took a yatra from Mumbai to Haridwar, Rishikesh, Gangotri, and then we came back on the train. So on the way there, there's nothing to do. There's no Wi-Fi on the train. The train that we were on didn't have it. Some trains do, I guess, now. So your only time pass that you have is to either talk to your fellow brahmacharis, which we've been together 2 years, we've talked enough, all right? Or you eat something. Every station, there's some other delicacy that each station is famous for. And how long does the train stop at each station? 3 minutes. With or without you, it'll head out. So every station, a couple of the brahmacharis are jumping off, going and buying something for the whole group. What chips or some, whatever it is, namkeen, whatever it is, and then jumping back on. Sodas, things like this. So I wanted to be part of the fun. I wanted to contribute to the group as well. So they were taking my money to do it. But then I was saying, I want to get off at the next stop. I want to get the food for us. They all stared at me, started laughing. That isn't Ekobhaya. You can't do this. I want to do it. I said, okay, if you're so insistent, get off at the next stop. I got off at the next stop. 2 stations before Delhi, I remember, that's what it was. The air was getting kind of heavy, that's how I recognized it was there. So I got off, and then I think the first mistake we made was, I got in a line. As a vendor, I got in a line. Now I'm patiently waiting my turn. Like kids, men, women, everyone's just kind of pushing me out of the way and going forward. There's no excuse me, there's no Hariom, nothing like that. I'm diligently waiting in the line. And then the brahmachari got in the doorway and said, what are you doing? It's been a minute and a half already, where are you with the stuff? I said, I'm waiting in line. And he said, no. And he jumped out, got me, pushed our way through the line, put the money in the guy's face, grabbed what we needed, and like a dilwale dunhaniya le jayenge moment, the train is leaving and you're trying to get on, like that brahmachari had to help me onto the train. And then they made a rule, rest of this trip, you are not to get off the train under any circumstance. I said yes, I totally believe you. Because our acharya's instructions was, you missed the train because you're off somewhere, Don't even think about meeting us where we are. Go back to Bombay. Your yatra ends right there. Hari Om. Go back to where you came from. You're done. So it mattered that much. So space, personal space, there it was a whole different thing. Where in that bustle of that line right there was no like, okay, my barrier is this much, you have to stay away from me, nothing like that. People were pushing left and right. So when it comes to manipulating the space then, we do so much of it. Thinking that a certain external environment will help me in my growth. Where it comes to this inquiry, however, the ultimate culmination is I am beyond space as well. Beyond even the most subtle elements is where my true identity lies. Whether it's time, space, cause and effect, we've seen all of these factors, but I am beyond all of them. That's what's really surprising when we do the Saddarśana. Now we come to another one of my favorite topics. 19th shloka delves into what do we understand the realized person as? There are a lot of misconceptions about what this realization is. What does this even mean? Dehatma bhave nyajado samano. Dehatma bhave nyajado samano. Ekasya dehe hridi deepta atma. Ekasya dehe hridi deepta atma. Akramya dehan cha jagat cha purnaha. Akramya dehan cha jagat cha purnaha. Parasya meyam tanumatramatma. Parasya meyam tanumatramatma. Here we find how we see the self from different standpoints. What are different standpoints we see as the self? The way, the most basic level of seeing the self meaning what is my identity, is through putra bautra. One school of thought actually says this. That, imagine if there is a fire in your house, what are you going to protect first? Yourself, not your kids? Aren't there people, though, for the sake of their kids, they would throw them out of the house so that they're safe, even if it means they burn up? People would do that. To the point where recently, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, or now Israel, Palestine, to get to a safe place, there are only a finite amount of seats on an airplane or a bus or a vehicle. Many people will put their young children on there, leaving themselves in those war-torn areas. That we care more about them surviving. From that standpoint, then, what I consider the most important, what I consider I, is actually that other person. May my legacy live on that way. That's what I see as myself. That much tadatmya, attachment or identification, is with that other being. That's the very first level then. One other school says this physical body is the self. That is the ultimate. That you talk about things like rebirth and all of that. We don't know our previous births, thank God. We don't know what will happen in the future. This birth is everything in the present. And they twist what we've said before about time not being a factor, saying don't worry about time being a factor, focus on this one birth that you have, that is the most important. From that standpoint, this physical body is what persists for the whole Janma. That physical body must be I. It's easy for us to look at that Chadavaka materialistic standpoint and dismiss it. I'm a Vedanta, I don't believe in this. If we saw the Chadavaka logic, I'm telling you, we would be quite enticed by it. It sounds very, very attractive. So some say, I am this body. Because they make comments, I am thin, I am fat, I am tall, I am short, I am fair, I am dark. All these statements pertain to I, therefore it has to be me. And when you say I is something unchanging, pure consciousness, they scoff at that. I is what I refer it to. This is my counter for the whole world to see as well. I must be this body. Now, there's A more refined view, even more than that. Some say that I cannot be this physical body, I must be this mental equipment. Because the physical body may go through changes. This mental inner instrument, though, that stays constant, doesn't it? You're born with the same mind you had as when you were a child. Some likes and dislikes do you ever grow out of? Certain tendencies do you ever improve upon or grow out of? Like, how many of you send your husbands to get groceries sometimes? You want to do it so you can do it right, but sometimes you need something the last minute, you send your husbands out, right? So don't they get the exact right brand and quantity of whatever you need right away? No? Okay, that must be first 5 years of marriage. After that, at least they must know, right? Benefit of doubt. Okay, let's talk maybe 30 years of marriage. After that, still, is there an issue? Ladies?
I can't send.
You can't send at all. You've just stopped at this point. You're wasting money that way. Wrong brand, wrong thing, wrong everything. You make them now, yeah. See? So some things never change. With your kids then, how many times have you told them? When you get out of the shower, stand on the placemat and then dry yourself off, not walking around everywhere, getting the whole thing wet. You've told your kids that? But after high school, they realized that they stopped doing that, right? No? Still? I know you're a kid too, okay, interesting. It doesn't stop. These things, tendencies like this do not stop. Therefore, this mind must be a permanent entity then. It must be persisting if there's no evolution in some things. But the fact that this inner instrument, with the thoughts that flow through it, my inner instrument takes the shape of every thought coming and going. It's constantly changing. And based on Siddhantas we're going through, that which changes is unreal. That cannot be my identity. Therefore, the inner instrument is not me. Call it mind, call it intellect, separate it any way you want. That cannot be me is the point. Finally, we get to the point where we have to admit that what I am is completely different from these 3 states of existence, waking, dream, deep sleep, completely different. So the way I view the world as a jnani, realized person is, despite this world of objects persisting, seeing things the way they are, this is unreal, what I am is beyond that. Now, does that mean they stop caring about this world completely? Because aloofness is not a quality of the one who's realized. What do we see in the 3rd chapter of Gita when it comes to why they do any kind of action at all? Because there's no new vasanas being layered on their personality. Not the actions lead to anything for them. What's the purpose of their action?
Role model.
Lokasamgraha, you can say. Benefit of those people is why they act. You look at Puja Gurudev's life. He traveled, once he started traveling, he never stopped. 4 decades of traveling around the world again and again, teaching this knowledge. From 1965 until his mortal coil dropped in 1993. There was no rest to his travels. Now, in and through all of this, that knowledge was still intact. That I am not this body, I shall keep going forward for the benefit of the people. To the point where, 18% of his heart was functioning near the end of his life. That did not stop him at any point. Now, juxtapose that with his guru, Swami Tapobanji Maharaj. Once he went to the Himalayas at a young age, he did not leave there ever again. Even when he was sick, with the lung disease, I believe, Puja Gurudev himself told him, let me take you to Delhi. There are good doctors there, they can help you. Bhagavan Guru's response was, okay, so you're saying people don't die in Delhi then? Meaning he knew that if the body has to drop, it has to drop. Now, can we point at either one of them, based on their vyavahara, how they live transactionally, and say one is realized, one is not? Can't. We can't say that because one sat in the Himalayas reveling in his true nature, therefore that's realization. But the one who traveled the globe is not realized. We can't say that. Because realization does not depend on what the person's outer actions are. Solely depends on, do they have this knowledge of their true identity? Do they not have this knowledge of their true identity? That is the only marker. There are no external markers. Why am I making this point clear? Because oftentimes as Hindus, we get carried away by people with siddhis. Different kinds of skill sets. Oh, they materialize necklaces and rings out of nowhere. That's why they're realized. Or they believe something has to happen. They can predict the future. They can see inside my mind and who I am. Therefore, they must be realized. Now, siddhis are possible. Seeing into the future is a possibility. Having fire this close to me and not being burnt or affected is possible. That is a siddhi. But equating that with realization of this truth, that cannot be. Different upasanas and prakriyas can give me certain special powers. That does not mean the person is realized, however. Let's not get carried away by that. Which is why in today's world, when we see in the Upanishads that it clearly says this knowledge must be taught and learned by someone who is a Shrotriya Brahmanishta. Upanishad we find that. Brahmanishta means that he or she who have understood what the true identity is. Brahmanishta. Shrotriya is someone who has systematically gone through this Vedic study. Gone through the scriptures, understood it that way. So if someone says, and there are very popular speakers claiming to be Hindu, that say, don't learn Sanskritam, don't worry about scripture, that just muddles your mind, it's an inner awakening, inner experience. Stand up and run away. That is not what Sanatana Dharma professes. Worse yet, if someone claiming to be a guru says, I am an avatar of that divine, I am an avatar of Bhagavan, don't even get your shoes and stand up and run away as quickly as you can. Our devatas, our ideas and concepts of Bhagavan, they come from our itihasas, Puranas, and Vedas. Those are the only places. Anyone claiming now that I am an avatar of this form of Bhagavan, I am this, I am that does not happen. Sadly, in today's world, we dismiss those gurus who actually speak from Shastra, from that experience of the highest, saying that, oh, they just talk about lame things like jnana. I want to go to that person who can tell my future, who can look at my face and know what my pain is, who has all these special powers. That's not the point. Not the point at all. So siddhis may be there. To equate that with self-realization, though, is a mistake on my part if I do that. So here in this shloka, what we find so interesting to see is the wise person understands that this body, though false, has a purpose to it, and this body is inert if not for that spark of consciousness in it. And that pure consciousness from which it borrows, that is my true identity. And so, for the welfare of the people, despite no benefit for them, they act on in their work. That is the role of a jnani. Now we come to the 20th shloka. Ajnasya vijnasya cha vishvamasti. Ajnasya vijnasya cha vishvamasti. Purvasya drishyam jagadeva satyam. Purvasya drishyam jagadeva satyam. Parasya drishyashraya bhutamekam. Parasya drishyashraya bhutamekam. Satyam prapurnam pravibhadya rupam. Satyam prapurnam pravibhadya rupam. Ajnasya vijnasya. Either for the ajnani who does not know their true identity, and even for the vijnani who knows that true identity, Vishvam asti, This world is real for both of them. It does exist. Real meaning it exists for both of them. So we saw this yesterday. It's not that upon realization, perception comes to an end. Perception is there. In all ways. Some people say, oh, the realized person must not feel any pain. Not true. The realized person must not get angry ever. They must not have emotions that get to them. Really? People tell me when they were traveling with Gurudev or hosting him, go to the airport with Gurudev and tell him, oops, I forgot your ticket at my house. Will he get angry or not at that moment? Definitely would. Not like these days we have a kiosk, you punch in the number, it spits out a ticket. If you don't have your ticket, you don't have your ticket. That's what it is. But what are these emotions used for is important to see. There's one instance when there was one mission president of a center in India who put Gurudev's name on a flyer to speak at an event without asking Puja Gurudev first. He assumed that, okay, Gurudev is in this city during this time, let me put his name on the flyer, then I'll go ask him to confirm. Gurudev had another event that day. So in front of everyone, he dressed that man down. Gurudev was in his wheelchair by that point, near the end of his life, and he just blasts that man left and right. As a mission president, how could you be so irresponsible? Is this what I've taught you in an organization? Just go and do things like this without checking? Where is your process that you follow? Where is your dignity? Where is your integrity? He's dressing this man down, full volume. And then, 2 seconds later, literally 2 seconds later, turns to the wheelchair. There's one kid who had come to him, who had recently won a Gita Jayanti competition. Smiles big at the kid, picks him up, put him on his lap, keeps going and playing with the kid at this point. Meaning that anger was a tool. You and I get angry at someone, the rest of our day is ruined. We hold that baggage with us for days or weeks or months or years or decades or lifetimes like this. The wise person does no such thing. Any emotion is simply a tool. Then, does a wise person feel sadness? Anger we see as a tool. Let's do something more internal then. Does the realized person feel sadness? No. If I were to say a realized person can never get sick with a fever or cancer, would you agree with me? You wouldn't. As long as the human body is there, these problems will be there. The human body, this physical, tangible body, is made up of the grossified elements. Tattva Bodha again, we find that. Grossified elements is what this human body is made of. This mind, the seat of emotions, is made up of subtle elements. Same thing, just elements in their subtle form. Those same 5 elements. So if these elements must decay and have their ups and downs at the physical level, why not at the mental level then? There's an instance in Srimad Bhagavatam. This comes in the Mahatmya, the introduction to the first canto, where Bhagavan Shri Vedavyasji is sitting on the banks of Gangaji. Kind of udas, very morose, just sitting there like this. Like how some people do near the end of the lecture, when it's getting really boring like right now. Some people just kind of lean in like this. That's how he was sitting, just really, really kind of down and out. Then my favorite figure comes out of nowhere. Who's my favorite figure? Not a G. Not I. Comes out of nowhere. Vyasji, what's going on? Why are you like this? Why are you so sad? What's going on? Very peppy, you know? And Vyasji says, I can't put my finger on it, but let me tell you my situation. I doubtlessly have this knowledge of my true identity. I've commented on all the Upanishads. Whenever there have been apparent contradictions in the Upanishads, I've reconciled them in the Brahma Sutras. I have documented the entire Mahabharata in Itihasa that is called the 5th Veda for the amount of knowledge that it has. I know this knowledge. I've chronicled the Leelas of our Devis and Devatas in the Puranas. I've done all of this, yet kuch lagta hai. I still feel morose, I still feel down for some reason, I don't know why. This is what Nanaji says. Because you have a mind, that mind must fluctuate just as the body does. Even if I'm realized, just as the body has to go through certain decaying changes, mind also has its ups and downs. And this is where Nanaji says that emptiness that you feel is because there is that lack of bhakti. Write the charitra of Bhagavan Sri Hari. That's how Bhagavatam came to be, from that one moment. So the point here I'm trying to make is, even for that realized person endowed with this mind that still persists and exists, even after realization, as they go through those emotional changes, they simply see the mind as unreal. Witness these changes, don't get carried away by them. That's the difference between a jnani and an ajnani. And the reason I'm going through this so detailed is because let's not have any misconceptions that realization means there's no more sadness at all for that person. The guarantee is unlimited happiness, meaning there's no new birth to be taken. But the prarabdha that I must live out due to karmas done in the past, that still comes to me, realized or otherwise. They still have to live out that prarabdha. Which is why we explain disparity in the lives of these great Mahatmas. Why is it that one Mahatma stayed stationary at one point, did not go anywhere, while one Mahatma never had the luxury of staying still ever? That is that prarabdha that comes to them. That's the only way to explain it. So realization is quite a complicated topic, but for the purpose of Saddarśana, we see, even upon that realization, this existence, changing existence in the world remains as it is. Knowing what my true identity, I see it as false. Just as I see a movie on screen, I may cry or laugh during the movie. It's not like I'm watching a comedy movie, I'm not going to laugh the whole time because I know it's fake. Knowing it's not real, I can still laugh. All the while understanding it's not real. Emotions can be there. Reality given to them is not there. That's the difference. Now we come to the 21st shloka. This is one of my most favorite ones in the entire text. A topic that comes up often. Let's see this one together. Vidhe prayatnasya chako vivadaha. Vidhe prayatnasya chako vivadaha. Tayor dvayor moolamajanatam syat. Tayor dvayor moolamajanatam syat. Vidhe prayatnasya cha moolavastu. Vidhe prayatnasya cha moolavastu. Sanjnanatam naiva vidhirnayatnaha. Sanjnanatam naiva vidhirnayatnaha. Fate and self-effort. Vidhehe, fate, prayatna, self-effort. This is a constant argument that is there. That which is real. Our high school kids bring it up even today. They were talking about it. Fate versus destiny. Some people are of the camp that no matter what I do, sabdika, everything will just happen as it has to. There's nothing I can do to change things. Some believe there's no such thing as this destiny. What I do, the choices I make, that's what determines my happiness. That's my attitude as I work in the world. Which one is true? I also look at it from different standpoints. If we look at it from the standpoint that I am in control, I have to be in control of every situation, then for me, I come to the conclusion that destiny is what's there, self-effort doesn't matter, eventually. I didn't make a mistake in what I said here. I deliberately said this. If I believe that my actions, every time, I have to be in complete control of every situation, Anything that goes wrong, I'll chalk it up to destiny at that point. Self-effort does not matter. I did everything right, still this happened. Everything's out of my hands, is what I'll believe. If I'm someone that goes through life surrendering at every instance, saying the world will take care of itself, my few decisions and few actions I take have an outsized value, I will believe self-effort has a great role in my life to play. Doesn't that sound antithetical a little bit here? That's the truth, though. That if I'm a control freak, I think everything is out of my hands. It's like holding sand. The more I squeeze the sand, the quicker it slips through my fingers. The more I try to control everything, I see everything is out of my control, nothing that I do for destiny. But when I surrender and think everything will happen as it happens, the few actions I do, the fruits are that much more visible. I say, man, action has great potential behind it. What is the truth found in Saddarśana, though? Again, inquiring into I shows us what? Any idea of self-effort or destiny affecting me only affects me as this jiva at this transactional level. When it comes to that I of pure consciousness, both of these are moot. Destiny nor self-effort plays a role when I understand myself as that pure consciousness. Now you can say, Haji, it's a cop-out of an answer. For everything you go to that ultimate reality, every answer will be like this. Soft, bull. Answer this the right way. Okay. When it comes to pradabdha, those effects that come to me, whatever action I do, the consequence of that is pradabdha. So clearly by that logic, self-effort through my karma is what determines my future. But then one objection comes up. I can understand certain actions that I take and certain consequences that come of them. There are certain consequences that come to me that I have no idea about the action what can even do. Meaning, this karma has its fruits of pradabdha of either karma done in the immediate past, meaning this lifetime, or remote past, previous lifetimes. There are some pradabdha karmas, and those fruits that I must face can only come to me in certain yonis. Can only come to me as a female, only come to me as a male. Until I take that birth and go through it, that pradabdha cannot come to me at that point. So like that, there are many intricacies to this whole idea. So what I cannot understand, I chalk up to destiny, saying it's not my fault, I didn't do this action. In this body, I may not have done that action. Could have happened in a previous life. Or even further then, let's take it one step further here. That when it comes to all of these different actions, does that mean no matter what I do in this lifetime, there's some pradabdha waiting for me? Yes, I can't get out of it. But through ardent Ishvara Upasana, that worship of Bhagavan, even that pradabdha can be mitigated. Not eliminated, mitigated. It won't hit me as strongly if I have this strong bhakti and perform karma with that bhava. That's also been documented. Now, if you don't believe me about this power of karma and its consequences, we only have to look at the story of Rishi Mandavya, who's also known as Ani Mandavya. Why? Ani means impaled or a stick. Why is this relevant? There was a great Rishi who was in his tapasya in his ashrama. There were some criminals, robbers, who had stolen from the king and had run in this direction. And in his tapasya, he didn't notice, they left whatever they looted, they left it near his ashram, or in the ashram. So the king's men came there, and they said, "You're the Rishi that stole it then." He said, "No, I've been here this whole time. No, you stole it." His punishment was what? He was impaled by a stick that went through his body. Ani Mandavya is the name he has for that reason. And then he inquires. So I go, why did this happen to me? Why did I get impaled like this? I've done only good things in this lifetime. I'm a Mahatma and everything. Why did this happen to me? Turns out when he was a child, he had this practice of getting like insects, getting like little toothpick-style sticks, impaling those insects with those sticks. Ignorance, the folly of youth, not understanding he did that. Even for that, he had to pay the price later in this way. Now, this is not said to scare anyone. The reason I'm sharing this is prarabdha will have its effects. Every karma is accounted for. That's what we learn from here. So to dismiss self-effort and say everything is written doesn't matter, self-effort matters a lot, especially on the spiritual path. But to say that everything that comes to me is based on what I've done in this lifetime, also not true. That role of prarabdha is very strong from either the immediate past, this lifetime, remote past, previous janma. But at the end of the day, in Saddarśana, when we analyze all roads lead back to I, back to that existence principle, we find both self-effort and destiny, or what I think is destiny, are products of this ahankara. Understand that ahankara is not me. Both of these are rendered moot at that point. That's what we find. Now we come to the 22nd shloka. Yati shiturvikshana-vikshana-mikshitaram Yadi shiturvikshana-mikshitaram Avikshyatanmanasike kshanam syat Avikshyatanmanasike kshanam syat Na drashturanyah paramohitasya Na drashturanyah paramohitasya Viksha svamude praviliyanishta Viksha svamude praviliyanishta. Here, that idea of what is true Ishvara Darshan is explained. I think I talked about this 2 days ago. When it comes to my idea of this Bhagavan, I can say I am a pure Bhakta. Where the Leela, the stories of Bhagavan, I know all of them. I believe strongly in this Bhagavan, that he has my well-being in mind. I love him and express that through that ardent worship. Puja, japa, dhyana on that Bhagavan, I love doing. But do I see Bhagavan as that ultimate reality? Now, this is where this whole idea of different darshanas comes in. Let's juxtapose 2 here. One side we have Advaita Vedanta. On the other, we have Dvaita. Advaita we've seen at length, where that Ishvara is that embodiment of that substratum, that existence principle, consciousness principle, unmitigated bliss. There is one and only. Whether that expresses as Ishvara through the Maya Upadhi conditioning, whether it expresses as Jiva through that Maya Upadhi conditioning, essentially is one and only. Ishvara is that most sattvic of all entities. By raising my level of sattva, through that worship of Ishvara, I traverse my path as a sadhaka. Upon that realization, again, one and only. No bheda, no differences. That's the Advaitic viewpoint. The Dvaita says what? No matter what you do as a sadhana, no matter what knowledge you gain, there is no union with that Ishvara, meaning there's no one and only where everything merges in. At the most, there's closeness to that Bhagavan, where next life is spent in great service. Where in Swarga, or in Vaikuntha, if I'm Vishnu Bhakta, Bhagavan Vishnu's hotel room number is 108, and mine is 109, right next to him. Now, what's the flaw in this logic then? If realization, according to what the Vedas and Upanishads say, is where there's no more birth, how can it be that the closest I get is a servant, dasa of Bhagavan, and being with him, but this knowledge does not lead to lack of rebirth? That can't be tenable. Which is why true Ishvara Darshana here, as Bhagavan Maharshi puts it, is not just seeing that form of Bhagavan. That true Ishvara Darshan is, do I see that Bhagavan as that ultimate reality? An embodiment of that Brahman, wielding that Maya with that conditioning, do I see Bhagavan that way? If I don't, yes, great bhakti can be there, jnana is not there though. Which is why Gurudev would often point out, bhakti sweetens jnana, jnana deepens bhakti. Simply believing in that form, loving that form is an awesome step. But seeing it simply at that level, not having the knowledge base to understand what that Bhagavan's embodiment is, stops me. In the same way, having this intellectual knowledge of what's here, going through it logically, making it make sense, is great. Without that Ishvara Upasana Shakti, of having that surrender to Bhagavan, there is no way I grow as a sadhaka. So these two paths are not mutually exclusive. Because what have we been taught? Let me know if you've heard this statement before. That Sanatana Dharma is quite flexible with its adherents. It does not matter if you follow Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, they all take you to the same place. Have you heard that before? That if you're more emotionally minded, sing some bhajans, cry a little bit, Bhakti Yoga is for you. If you're some dry intellectual that no one likes to be around, hit the books, gain that Jnana Yoga, go that way to the highest. If you're someone that can't study well and you don't have this bhava of bhakti, do work for that Bhagavan, work, and that'll take you to the highest. Nonsense. That is a view that's come around lately in the past few centuries. The actual viewpoint of the Veda is, we see in Bhagavad Gita, the aspects of Karma Yoga, work that is done in a detached way for growth of the individual, purification of this instrument. One part of Karma Yoga that must be there is offering the fruits at the feet of Bhagavan, offering this very karaka, equipment that's doing the work, and surrendering that to Bhagavan as well. If there is no bhakti, then is Karma Yoga possible? Not at all. Bhakti has to be there. True bhakti, like here, is defined as understanding the tattva, the essence of that Bhagavan, what he or she embodies. Without jnana, is there any bhakti then? These are all in tandem with each other. So we cannot say, based on my personality type, I'm a worker bee, boom, jnana, karma yoga, does not work that way. If anything, it's sequential. Bhakti, which is wrapped up in that karma, that is what karma yoga is, leading to that jnana, which only comes from this sustained bhakti, from this sustained karma yoga that purifies the mind. That whole process has to be understood then. Without that, there's no progress. So with that, we've gone through some more today. Tomorrow we continue our discussion of this essence of seeing Bhagavan as that self, and we delve into the topic of meditation as well tomorrow. It'll be interesting then. Alright, we'll see you tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha